And an Ethiopian illegal migrant paedophile has received less time in prison than 3 men who were arrested for violently protesting because of the actions of that same illegal migrant. Those 3 local men from the Epping area were arrested and now have been sentenced for violent disorder during a protest at Epping Hotel over the sick and vile actions of the Ethiopian illegal migrant Hadush Kibatu, who, of course, was found guilty of touching and trying to kiss a schoolgirl in Epping and a further attempted sexual assault of an older woman. Kibatu was sentenced to just 1 year in prison. Rightfully, locals in Epping were furious at Kibatu's actions, and their movement sparked countrywide protests. Of course, as the reality that these illegal migrants were not the doctors, engineers and nurses you were all promised finally sank in across the country, didn't it? Now, how much time do you think the 3 men who did act outrageously and violently, might I add, and I'll just say that if there's any shadow of a doubt here, I do not endorse what they did, but how long do you think they got in prison compared to the illegal migrant who sexually assaulted a child? Well, the 3 local men received the following sentences in prison. Dean Smith, 1 year and 10 months. Martin Pegram, 2 years and 2 months. Stuart Williams, 2 years and 4 months. Yes, that's right. All 3 of them had harsher sentences than that sick paedophile who illegally broke into our country and then days later, literally a few days later, sexually assaulted a child and then attempted to sexually assault a woman. It is nuts, isn't it? The judge, who oversaw both the cases for Kibatu and the 3 local men, who of course were sentenced, Jamie Sawyer, he's the judge, he said this: "I am satisfied that this was racially motivated, at least in part, and you wished for the asylum seekers to be removed from the area. You didn't wait for due process, you wanted to take matters into your own hands." And look, I am simply and quite obviously outraged that their actions, that those 3 men's actions were deemed worse than the actions of the illegal migrant who sexually assaulted a child. It's nuts, isn't it? It's crazy that there's even a comparison. I also want to cast your minds to the recent story of a man who was brutally attacked by a knife-wielding Muslim man because he was offended that a protester was burning a Quran outside the Turkish embassy. That man didn't get a single day in prison. Can you see the problem with that? Or what about Moffat Conophilia? In December 2023, he sexually assaulted a 17-year-old girl on Weymouth Beach by kissing her without consent after she rejected his advances. He got an 18-month community order, including 100 days of alcohol monitoring and 60 hours of unpaid work. Yet again, no prison time. These cases expose the deep rot in our judiciary, whether it's the fault of activist judges, police not doing enough to hold the peace, or sentencing guidelines, or all of the above, frankly. It is broken Britain in action, with the hammer coming down, seemingly, on British people tougher than it does for sick illegal paedophiles who break into our country. Two-tier Britain cannot continue. It is pushing this country to a breaking point and making a mockery of our country.
Using the internet without a VPN, a virtual private network, is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. This video's sponsor is Private Internet Access. They are the VPN to help keep you safe. Click the link in the description below to find out why over 30 million people have downloaded PIA to protect themselves online. A virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and helps keep your data private. When you're browsing the internet at home, you give up a large amount of data to businesses, to shops, and indeed to social media giants too. Hackers have the ability to steal your personal data with ease, including sensitive information such as passwords, keystrokes, and even your personal photos. Private Internet Access helps protect your personal data by encrypting your internet connection to keep your data out of the hands of cyber criminals. And it's not just hackers either to be concerned about. Information can be censored too. When Canada passed their C-18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news and content you love. Private internet access is available for Windows users, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one PIA subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices. And we've got a huge GB News discount for you too. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get a massive 83% off PIA. That's under £2 a month, the price of a coffee, and you'll get an extra 4 months completely free on top. Also, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee too. Visit piavpn.com/GB News to start protecting yourself digitally today.
I want to get the thoughts of my panel on this. Political commentator Chloe Dobbs, businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and former Labour Minister Bill Rammell. Adam, I'll start with you because, of course, Epping, close to where you are, you've been to these protests as well. As I said, I'm not endorsing what these blokes did. Right? We should always call out violence, and I've called it out everywhere I've seen it. However, there is something wrong with our judiciary and there's something wrong with our system when a man who committed such a heinous crime after being here for days and taking the goodwill of the British people as well, while he was put up in a hotel and bed and breakfast every day, went on to commit a sexual offence and got less time.
Look, Alex, first and foremost, the victim, a young 14-year-old girl, I've been supporting that family from the start. Got to know them. She will never be the same. She's really, really struggled. And people need to know that. People make light of it online, saying, oh, it wasn't that bad. She's really struggling. Now, I've been on these protests from the start. The early few, there were thousands of people there. A handful decided to play up. And a lot of the time it was antagonised by lefty counter-protesters being walked in, allowed to walk in, and aggressive motions towards us, calling us Nazis, calling us fascists. So I'm not trying to explain their actions, but I'm just trying to paint the picture here. Obviously, violence against police, I cannot condone. But one of them, Smith, no previous convictions. He punched a police shield. He was given 1 year and 10 months in prison for that. Yet, I'll take us back to 2024. A balaclava-clad rioter called Ibrahim Mia was caught running around throwing bricks. He got a suspended sentence. Another man, Hasnan Iqbal, threw bricks towards police and protesting in the Hanley riots in 2024. He got a suspended sentence. The North London supermarket attacker that had a giant kitchen knife, waving it at supermarket staff. It was a hate crime, saying some terrible things. Suspended sentence. Now, look, these men were obviously always going to be punished. But how can they get nearly 2 years or over 2 years for such actions when I've just shown comparable cases that didn't even get a prison sentence, that it was suspended? We have two-tier justice in this country, and it is there for people to see.
Chloe?
And Lucy Connolly got 31 months for a tweet. I mean, there is just no way that you can look at the differences in the sentences in these various cases and say we do not have two-tier justice in this country. And people are absolutely fed up of it because they feel like they are living in a two-tier society. They feel like they've got two-tier policing, two-tier justice, two-tier everything, it would seem.
It certainly does. Bill, this is the problem, isn't it? When you look at the sentence that he got, that Kabatu got, versus the three men, and again, what they did was disgusting and they should never have attacked police or been violent, it says something to the British public, doesn't it? It says that there's a system here that's playing against you. That's what people are feeling up and down the country. And I'm not saying it's particularly the judge's fault. It could be the sentencing guidelines, but there is something wrong with that, in my opinion. I think British people, sensible people, will go, actually, there is something wrong with that. That shouldn't be the case where someone's sexually assaulted a young girl, getting less time than somebody who's committed not a nice act, but clearly, I don't think, as heinous as sexually assaulting someone, which will damage them for the rest of their life.
Well, let's look at the whole evidence, right? These were 3 violent criminal thugs who rightly received stiff sentences. Martin Pegram had 14 previous convictions from 26 offences, 2 of them involving violent weapons. Stuart Williams had 8 previous convictions. Dean Smith, that Adam referred to, had an existing caution for common assault. Our courts in this country rightly take account of your previous criminal conduct when sentencing. You know, the migrant rightly was imprisoned for 1 year, but these were violent criminal thugs. The police commander actually said, and they were at the forefront of throwing batons, throwing bricks at the police. The police commander said in 20 years of policing, he had never witnessed violent disorder on this scale.
So, Bill, how comes Ibrahim Mir in 2024, who's caught running around throwing bricks, and Hasnan Iqbal, who also threw bricks towards police and other protesters, were given suspended sentences?
I don't know, Adam. And part of the problem with this...
Can we guess?
Yeah, but no. Part of the problem is you just get snippets of information that are presented, whereas the judge and the jury have rightly sat through the whole testimony, the whole evidence that's put forward.
So throwing bricks towards police and protesters shouldn't get a custodial sentence?
I don't know the details of that.
But punching a police shield should?
Sorry, if you have thrown bricks at the police, you should rightly be sentenced.
Well, Hasnan Iqbal wasn't.
I don't know the full details of that.
There will be cases where maybe we don't know all of the details, and I think you're right to say that judges will take into account previous convictions and whatnot. But I think it is clear to me, if you look at, for example, Lucy Connolly's case, that we have two-tier justice. When you had a Rochdale grooming gang leader who was part of a ring that abused up to 47 girls as young as 12, that he only had to spend 2 years behind bars, I think regardless of whether you know every single detail there, it's quite clear to me that we've got a two-tier justice system. And very often in the case of sexual assaults and rapes, people are not given long enough sentences, in my opinion.
Well, I think I might agree with you on that. And yeah, that needs to be equalised. But, you know, take the one specific example. Pegram, 14 previous convictions from 26 offences. Are you telling me he didn't deserve to go to prison for a long time?
I'm certainly not. My point was from the beginning, and I want to make this clear again, is I'm not condoning anything they did. I think it was violent, disgusting, and I think I've made that very, very clear. And they are thugs for doing what they did. I've called it out every time I've seen it, on any time we talk about these things. What I think the problem is, and I think this is where we get into the difficulty here, is that actually the outrage is the fact that this man didn't get a longer sentence, that he only got a year. He only got a year, and I think
he'll be out in a few months.
And yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's the other thing.
Well, and he's going to be subject to automatic deportation. He will, which he should be. I hope he does. Actually, I really hope he does.
One thing
well, that's what we're bracing for next, and that's where the outrage is here. It's not about whether these people deserve what they got. I think that is totally fine. I just think that when a man sexually assaults a child, for them to go away for a year and then be out earlier than that, despite the lifelong, mental disorder, she will most likely.
She's really struggling. I'll reiterate that. But one thing I will say, earlier this year or late last year, we heard that the sentencing guidelines would discriminate against white, probably middle-aged Christian men in many cases. Is that being implemented? I've got to ask you because, as I've said, Ibrahim Mir, Hasnan Iqbal, why didn't they go to prison? Why has Smith gone to prison? He punched a police shield.
Yeah, come on. Obviously, on the sentencing council stuff, as Shabana Mahmood has stopped that, hasn't she? Yeah. She did stop it, and she's saying she will. She's got a veto power now on those things.
But it was crazy. It was even being suggested by these quangos in the first place.
And I think that this is where people feel that there's this outrage around the judiciary, and I just think that perhaps it hasn't caught up. The laws in this country have not caught up to the time that we are in, and I think rather than us trying to play around with quangos, we should be looking at legislation going, actually, there are people who've literally been caught with child pornography on their computers who are not going to prison.
Hugh Edwards should be in prison.
But you can certainly argue all those things, and this is the point of my argument. It's just it feels to me that there's a lot of things we need to deal with in this country. We just need to change legislation.
And there wouldn't be quite as much outrage about this man having such a short sentence if we weren't fearing that there's going to be a human rights claim afterwards, and he'll be able to say.
If the argument is that sexual offences should receive tougher prison sentence, and I'm open to that, then you need to change the law. The courts are just implementing the law as it stands.
Let's do it. Get on your Labour friends, let's do it.
Yeah, but let's not pretend that people like Pegram are not violent criminal thugs.
No one
should be in prison for a long time.
Agree.